Okay, just to check in, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So yes, we opened up this notice of funding opportunity on the 2nd of October, and this is the technical assistance webinar. It is being recorded, and the recording will be housed on both the ICEJA website, where the actual posting for this notice of opportunity is housed, as well as in Amplifund, where you actually apply for the notice of funding opportunity. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Just a couple housekeeping things. In the event that you need to refer to the materials that are being presented here today, this is going to be recorded. There will be a PowerPoint also distributed on that website, both in Amplifund as well as on the ICEJA website. I'm sorry, I'm doing a little double duty, just letting people into the meeting. If you require closed captioning at all, in the lower part of your screen, you'll notice a text box with 2 CCs in it. Clicking this will enable you to enable the closed captioning for you if you need that. I am going to ask everybody to mute themselves so that we can actively listen. If you're unfamiliar on how to unmute yourself, in the lower portion of the window, there's a little microphone. And if the microphone is crossed through with the red slash, that means you're muted. If it's not, that means that we can hear what you're saying. I will pause throughout the webinar to take questions, and we just ask that you unmute yourself and go ahead and ask questions at that time. As I am going through the PowerPoint, I have a little bit of trouble seeing the chat box, so we won't utilize that until I stop sharing the PowerPoint, but I'm going to go ahead and like I said, I will be pausing throughout the PowerPoint to answer any questions that you might have. Anybody have questions before we get started just about WebEx? I know that some people are very used to Zoom and maybe not WebEx, so I'm happy to answer any questions, any that I can. Okay. So like I said, this is for the Safe from the Start Notice of Funding Opportunity, the Safe from the Start Planning Grant Notice of Opportunity. We have some important dates, and these will come up just because they are important dates. They will be coming up throughout this PowerPoint. The first one is we will be answering Notice of Funding Opportunity questions. The last day to submit those questions will be on October 26th. At 5 o'clock. After that, we cannot answer any more questions. Our applications are due on November 2nd at 5 o'clock. We have a budget committee review and approval of the recommendations, and that will take place on December 14th of this year. And then there is a performance plan, and it's a little different from some of our other notice of funding opportunities. There will be 2 sections to this notice of funding opportunity, 2 timelines. The first one will be from January 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2024. If the grantees have performed satisfactorily, then we will go ahead and can have continuation for another 12 months, and that is with state fiscal year 25. Those dates are from July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. So just to explain the Safe from the Start program a little bit, it's designed to assist the development, implementation, and evaluation of comprehensive and coordinated community-based models to identify, assess, and serve children, primarily the ages between 0 to 5, who've been exposed to violence in their home or their community. Many times this violence that they are exposed to is domestic violence, community violence. It could be child abuse. Even there could be abuse against older adults in their home, but this is all covered under that exposure to violence. The Safe from the Start program model consists of 3 major components. The first one is the coalition and collaboration building component. And so this is, we'll kind of go into detail as this goes on, but this is a little bit of the backbone of the program, the guiding factor of the program as you go through. Your coalition will help support it, give referrals, and guide you through that process. Direct services, and which is pretty self-explanatory. Those are therapy and case management services to children 0 to 5. And then public awareness. And so this is really reaching out into the community to make them aware of issues of trauma and children exposed to violence. Applications funded through this renewal application, that's a typo, not a renewal application. This funding application must comply with the Safe from the Start model. So this is just a little graphic to show how we work in this program with the 3 components. So let's talk a little bit about coalition. Coalition involves required partners and recommended partners. Those are listed within the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Those are people within your community who are required to sit on your coalition, and you would be receiving referrals or giving referrals out to those folks in the community, and also asking for guidance with the program. Letting some more people in. They convene and maintain this Safe from the Start coalition to ensure better collaboration among service providers and holding coalition members, coalition meetings. Provide ongoing education to those members through professional development opportunities, and we use Safe from the Start modules or our guiding principles through that education. Our direct services are primarily focused on kids birth to 5 years old who've been exposed or witnessed violence in the home or the communities. That we do serve children who are older than 5 years old if the primary client is 0 to 5. So if they have a sibling or someone that's in their home that is older than 5, we will allow services such as therapy and case management with them, but there does have to be that child who is 0 to 5 that is the primary client. I'm getting a little bit of background, so if you could mute yourself, appreciate it. Okay, direct services. Sites must have a referral or outreach system that addresses confidentiality issues. They'll also be required to enter information gathered from the identified assessment tools into the database for analysis. Those assessment tools are also listed within the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Just a couple to give an example are the ASQ, Ages and Stages Questionnaire, the Childhood Behavior Checklist, the CBCL, and then we have some specific forms that we have developed throughout the program to use as well. That does not mean that there are not other assessments that a site could use, but we do require those assessments to be used. Public awareness. This is involving our community members, and some of those members may be in your Safe from the Start coalition, and others may just be community members who are either interested in services or just interested in the program. But we want to just create a community where there is public awareness around trauma and childhood exposure to violence. We want to incorporate community input into that planning process of basically, having those services, what that coalition would look like, and how to get referrals throughout the community. and just educate those residents about that scope of the problem. This is also listed in the notice of funding opportunity, but this outlines basically your deliverables for the first 6 months. So deliverables would be by May 15th, 2024, we would ask that you engage and invite community stakeholders to become members of the local Safe from the Start Coalition. Secure membership by creating memorandums of understanding agreements between those agencies and then the members of the local Safe from the Start program. We ask that you have 3 to 5 MOUs for submission by May 15th. Additionally, we ask that you conduct a community needs assessment and submit a summary of results from that community needs assessment by that same date of May 15th, 2024. We ask that you convene your local Safe from the Start Coalition monthly and have a minimum of 5 meetings. It may not be your full coalition that are attending those meetings, but it is a start to definitely get some of those MOUs signed on and invite people into the coalition to see if they are interested in participating. Now, contingent on satisfactory performance and funding, we may recommend for an additional 12 months of funding after this first 6 months. And so this is what, again, in the notice of funding opportunity as well, but this is what the next 12 months would look like with your deliverables. So you would develop and submit your Safe from the Start Coalition bylaws by September 1st, 2024. You would conduct a strategic plan and submit that 3-year strategic plan by February 1st, 2025. And then convene those, just continue those monthly coalition meetings. And we ask that you have a minimum of 10 meetings by June 30th, 2025. Throughout the whole process, this whole 18-month process, ICJS staff will work with those awarded applicants to achieve the deliverables that we just talked about. And so we have example templates and resources. We will make that available to you, as well as staff will meet with you periodically to go over challenges and barriers you might be experiencing, and then your successes, and help share those with the other planning grants. But we do have those templates for MOUs, for strategic planning, for what bylaws might look like in an operational model of your direct services. Eligible applicants include public agencies and non-for-profit organizations within Illinois, and all of our services must be conducted within Illinois. This is usually not a big issue, as in most people notice that this is a state grant, but we do have some areas in Illinois that their areas might go into either Iowa or Indiana in some areas, and we do require that the services that you are providing and that we fund you with are in Illinois. So again, and this will be repeated again, but this is our projected funding period, January 1st through June 30th of 2024, and then it would be July 1st, 2024 of June 30th, 2025 for the next 12 months. We have a minimum award of $100,000 and a maximum award of $120,000. So when you're creating your budgets, you want to be mindful of those minimum and maximum amounts. There is no match requirements for any of this grant at all. You can have match or in-kind funding, but we don't require that you report it. So I am going to pause for a minute and see if anybody has any questions. And if you do, please unmute yourself. Okay. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about the application materials in Amplifund. Some folks that have applied for other state funding through either ICEAG or other departments, state departments, they have maybe used Amplifund, but it is relatively new within our last, I don't know, 3 to 4 years of the state of Illinois using Amplifund. This is the link that you would use to get to that opportunity, and it does have a downloadable area where you can download the whole NOFO instructions, as well as any of the forms that you may need to use in Amplifund. Applying organizations must register, though, through the Illinois Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, GATA, grantee porthole. And that is the link for that. It's also in the notice of funding opportunity. Applying organizations must identify an individual who submit the application via Amplifund, and this person will serve as that primary contact for the application as we move through the application process. However, more than one individual can have access and complete the components. It's just that we ask that you identify one person as that contact person. So this is a little bit about GATA. And to access the portal Amplifund, you must have an Illinois.gov account, and you can go through the Illinois.gov and through the GATA portal to access that information if you don't already have that. And I do have some links here. Again, this PowerPoint will go out on the website as well as an Amplifund, so you'll have access to that through the PowerPoint. Again, this is how we access the application. This is the link. And this is what it's going to look like for those who have never been in Amplifund. When you first open it up, this is what it would look like. So this is the Safe from the Start notice the funding opportunity. But over here, you do see the authentication portal. So you, again, would need to have a public account or a partner account to get in to be able to see this and apply for the application. Once you get into the actual application and you hit apply, it'll take you to a screen that looks like this, and it talks about opportunity details and goes through different sections such as the project information, application forms, the budget, performance plans, and then submit. And so as you go through, you will see each box being checked once it is complete. Big reminder is to save often. So Amplifund system does time out after 20 minutes of inactivity. So, you know, if you get an important phone call and you have to walk away, just remember to save before you do that, because it will time out and you will lose anything that you don't save. So clicking save and continue is encouraged as you complete the information, or just saving periodically as you are completing the information. In the program narrative section, these forms will be completed in Amplifund under the application forms section. It's important that you answer all questions and individual parts of the questions. So be sure to read each question thoroughly, answer the question, and then go back to make sure that you've covered all parts of the questions, as some questions do have a couple different parts. Refer to the program requirements and prompts before each question and set of questions when you're completing your response. And then in the NOFO, it does have a section of evaluation and scoring. So you want to use that as a guide when you are completing your responses. Your program narrative should convey a need for the program, current efforts, and an understanding and implementation of the required program components. We encourage, and there is language throughout the notice of funding opportunity about person-centered language. So applicants are expected to use person-centered language in using references to people, individual clients, participants versus offenders, felons, words of those sorts. It just reduces the stigmatization that is counter to rehabilitation and reintegration goals. In the budget and narrative section, so in the next screen you will see this, but you need to read and check the budget acknowledgement on this form, and then click to the budget and complete the category line and item and narrative. Remember to mark as complete when you're on each page. And this really does go through that whole section. When you're looking through the bottom of the application, you want to look down and make sure you mark as complete when you feel like you have completed that. And then here is the save and continue down here. Or you can just save if you're in the middle of that section and don't want to leave that section. In each section, you will see a download button. So you can download that part of the application. So you could work on it independently and then come back to the actual site and fill in the information there. But in this area, it does say acknowledgement, so you have to acknowledge, and it won't let you go on and complete a budget unless you do click the acknowledgement button. This is what the budget would look like in Amplifund. You would click on the little X's, and that would show you, that would pop out like a different screen or a different section for you to complete. And then again, mark as complete, save and continue as you go on. There is a limit of $120,000. So if you go over that limit, it will not let you submit the budget. And there is a minimum of $100,000. So if you're under that, you will not be allowed to complete as well. Your budget must align with the program narrative. When we're reviewing this, we look at that closely to make sure that, you know, what you say you are doing matches with the budget that you're presenting. It has to be allowable, reasonable, and necessary for the program, and include detailed information in the narrative section. So not only would you drop in the amounts for each of those sections in each category, but there also is a section for a narrative to justify that expense and give some detailed information. So for instance, what supplies might you be using and how many of those supplies, those sorts of things. At the end, you'll see a submission verification. And if this doesn't come up, you have not applied. It is not successful. So you want to make sure it says success. You have submitted your application, and you can always go into your application and download what you have submitted. Throughout the application, there are sections in which we ask you to upload documents. For instance, it's required that you have 2 letters of support that accompany your application from community members and potential coalition members. So if you do not put in those 2 letters of support, upload those into the system, then it will not let you submit. This also goes for, there is a section where it asks for performance measures and an implementation schedule. It will have you download that, and you simply have to upload it again. As we saw in a previous slide, that we have already told you what those deliverables are and the deadlines for those. So you really don't have to go in and create your own deliverables. We have done that for you. So just to recap, all required application materials must be submitted by Amplifund. We only accept applications through Amplifund, not by email or not in paper form, only by Amplifund. By 5 o'clock on November 2nd to be considered for funding. They, and any late submissions beyond 5 o'clock on November 2nd will not be reviewed. Incomplete applications are those sent to another email or another email address, or if they're incomplete within Amplifund, will also not be reviewed. We have various resources for you. You can find these not only in this PowerPoint, but also on the website for the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority. Things that might help you. We have this applicant technical assistance recording. Again, it will be out there for everybody if you want to listen to it again. You can also get more information about how to register in the GATA grantee portal or create GATA grantee user accounts, register in Amplifund, completing an application, getting to know GATA. And then we also have information about recipe for grant success, just a little bit of technical assistance on being a grantee and what that means and how to be successful. So I am going to, again, pause for a second to answer any questions that folks might have. If you have a question, please unmute yourself.
Thank you for doing this call, Ms. Ratliff. My question is, are there any opportunities for me to speak to someone like one-on-one to see if I or my nonprofit would be a good candidate for this?
So that is a great question, and you kind of are leading me into my next section, so I appreciate that. Good transition. You cannot talk to anybody one-on-one. In order to be fair and transparent, and so we'll move to the next one. We ask that if you have questions that you submit your questions through this email address. So the cja.safefromsfplanning@illinois.gov. We will respond usually within 24 hours, but if it's over a weekend, it might be like 48 hours. We will respond to your question. We also submit all of those questions through they will be posted every Friday on our ICJA website, where you find the notice of funding opportunity, as well as in Amplifund. So you will get to go in and look at the questions and answers, not only something that you may have asked, but what other folks have asked. And I just saw a question in the chat. Again, in the mode that I'm in, I can't read that. If you wouldn't mind unmuting. Okay.
Yes, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
The person in the chat said they tried to email the cja.sfsplanning@illinois.gov, but it bounced back as undeliverable.
Okay, well, let me look into that. I did receive one question already through there, so I know that it's open and live. But I can check into that and follow up and make sure through the website, as well as through Amplifund, can post anything that if you're having any problems. Thank you for that. So, as I said, questions and answers, updates to any notice of funding opportunity materials, and questions from applicants. Those responses, we post them weekly. So there's a running list. It's updated weekly on Fridays, and it goes onto our website, and this includes a link here as well as on Amplify, which also includes the link. We do encourage you to submit early rather than later than the deadline, just in case you have any technical issues. So, you know, I always encourage folks, don't wait till that 5 o'clock on November 2nd, because once it hits 5:01, we can't accept applications. So getting it in earlier that day or even days before is advisable. This is a little bit about our review and funding process. I see just staff screen the applications for completeness in the very beginning once we get past the deadline. They are reviewed and scored by a team of internal and external reviewers and or program research grant professionals that we have recruited for our review committees. Funding recommendations are based on scoring guidelines outlined in the NOFO, and then recommendations are submitted to the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority Budget Committee for approval before the start date. So again, that date is December 14th, that we will submit those recommendations and approve. So each applicant is reviewed by 3 trained reviewers, and those scores are averaged. All applicants can receive a maximum of 100 points for the program narrative and budget, and applicants that receive an average score below 70 will not be funded. So we are giving priority to southern counties within Illinois, just because there is a need and no programs within the bottom half of our state right now. This is just a list of the geographic regions. Really what this means is that if we have an application from each of those regions and they are fundable, we will pick the southern counties first. So this is our selection process. We go from highest score from the southern counties, and then everybody else next highest scores, as long as they are above 70 points until funding is exhausted. We are looking to fund 2 to 3 programs or applicants through this process. And again, as I promised, here are the important dates. So the deadline to submit any questions would be October 26, 2023 at 5 o'clock. So October 27th will actually be the last day that we'll post questions and answers. Applications are due on November 2nd by 5 p.m. And our budget committee is on December 14th. And again, this is the performance plan. So the first 6 months is January through June of 2024, and then July 1st to June 30th from 2024-2025. And if you haven't seen it enough, that's our application deadline. This is my contact information. My name is Mary Ratliff. I am the program director for the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority Safe from the Start program, as well as the Illinois Family Violence Coordinating Council. But this is my information. And again, that is the email that we ask that you send questions to. And again, I have noted that there was a bounce back, so I'm going to check that as soon as we get done with this. So I am going to go ahead and stop sharing and see if there is any other questions.
Just for clarity, are you saying that this grant will only take two to 3?
Yes, we are only funding 2 to 3 programs.
Okay, for the entire state.
Yes, we already actually have Safe from the Start programs throughout the state. We have 9 programs throughout the state. We are just expanding that through this opportunity.
Okay, understand.
Julie, I did see in the chat that asking for an alternative email. If you could just please give me your email through chat, if you feel comfortable with that. I will note it down and make sure that I respond to you within the email.
Ms. Ratcliffe, where are the current Safe from the Start programs within the state?
Within the state, that's great. That's a really good question. And now I'm thinking about it, maybe I should have included that. We do have 9, so most of them are within Chicago. I believe we have 3 or 4 within the Chicago area, and then we have another 2 to 3 within the collar counties. We do have a program that is in the Quad City areas, so like in the Moline area.
Okay.
We have a program in the Bloomington area, as well as in the Peoria area. So Bloomington, Peoria is, well, really Bloomington is as south as our Safe from the Start programs get.
Thank you. So can I ask another question?
You sure can.
Okay, so the funding for each one of the selected grantees is between 100 and 120,000 for the
Correct.
okay. So you have about $500,000 for the whole thing.
Yeah, for the 18 months, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think I have another question too. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. The more questions, the better. Again, this is recorded just to let everybody know, because to be transparent, we want to make sure that everybody listens to those questions. So,
Okay, thank you. My organization is multi-state, and we have several locations within the state of Illinois. So although my office is in Chicago, but I already see that you already have services in the Chicago Cook County area. Although my physical address is in Chicago, can we apply for the southern counties?
yes, as long as you note in your applications, there is a section in the program narrative where it talks about the service area or the catchment area.
Okay. Yeah.
And so you would be very clear about those services within that area and what that might look like.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Another question in the chat is, since this is a planning grant, do you know if implementation funds will be available for those who are awarded planning grants? That is a great question. Yes, so the goal is once we get through the 18 months of planning grants, there will be time to open up a notice of funding opportunity for all implementation grants. And yes, so that is the goal, is that once, we get past June 2025, or even really before that, that's when the notice of funding opportunity would go out, that we would award you for an implementation grant. We found that planning grants are successful, setting you up for success to do an implementation grant. It just really works better to have that time to be thoughtful and plan out.
So should we understand then that the organizations that are selected for the planning phase are the ones who are going to do the implementation?
Well, I can't say that it's an automatic, because it is not. You do have to apply for the implementation.
Okay.
But there are definitely benefits of being in a planning grant.
Okay. and I'm sorry, I came in late to the presentation. I was in another meeting. But when I was reading the information that came out in my email this morning, it said that it's planning, but also implementation or direct services. So are those direct services to families or to organizations?
They are direct services to children between the ages of 0 to 5. And we do expand those services out to older children as long as the primary client is 0 to 5.
Okay, perfect, which is wonderful. I love the idea. But it is part of this particular funding period. I'm assuming the one from 24, 25.
So yes, there we previously in the presentation I explained the deliverables, and those are listed out in the NOFO,
Yeah.
the Notice of Funding Opportunity. We have specific deliverables within the first 6 months, and then specific deliverables within the second 12 months, the second half. It's not even a half, I guess it'd be 2/3. But yes, so we've already planned out. It involves strategic community needs assessment, working on coalition building and collaboration with our community partners, as well as creating bylaws and an implementation or a operational model for your program, and then a 3-year strategic plan.
Okay, yes, thank you. And the link to the NOFO, I'm so sorry, I'm the question queen here. The link to the NOFO is in the state's website already.
Yes, you can go to our ICEJA website,
Okay.
and it is listed in our funding opportunities. I am also posting it in the chat. This PowerPoint, as well as the recording, will also be posted on the ICEJA website under the funding opportunities, as well as in Amplifund under that opportunity.
Fabulous. Thank you. Yep, and the link went directly to that.
Any other questions?
Yes. The NOFO says that programs must follow the Safe from the Start model, which is outlined in the NOFO itself, but there are other resources out there, including an OJJDP report from a few years ago called Safe from the Start. Can you clarify what exactly this program should align with? Is it just what's outlined in the NOFO, or are there additional elements to this model that we should be aware of, or other references?
No, they are all listed out in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. And in fact, I am opening it up right now so that I can refer to the page. But the program model was explained, in the beginning of this presentation. It's the basic model of, first of all, you must have this 3-pronged approach in that having a coalition and collaboration piece. You must have direct services to children 0 to 5. And then you also must have a community awareness piece. In addition, we have an evaluation program, and we require certain assessments be used with your direct services. And we outline those in the Notice of Funding Opportunity as well. And I'm looking through to make sure I find the page number. I apologize.
And while you do that, what is the number of children per staff person that is recommended by Safe from the Start?
We at this time do not have a recommendation. That is really what you will be doing within your strategic planning process.
Okay.
Is establishing that. We do provide some some resources for best practices within that area, but we do not have, there is no set number of clients per practitioner.
Oh, okay.
By the way, the page numbers are page 10 and 11 outlines the different services. I mean, it talks about direct services, but those specifically refer to the different assessments that we use. And altogether, the program design is from page 8 in the notice of funding opportunity, and it goes through page 11.
Thank you.
And Chelsea also in the chat box shared the ICEDRA website where the funding page as well. Thank you, Chelsea.
Liv, I just want to be clear. This grant, this planning grant will include direct services.
Correct. Yes. It's required to have direct services, coalition, direct services, and public awareness.
Okay.
But for purposes of the planning grant, and you'll find through the narrative and the questions, follow the questions, answer the questions. We are preparing you for that model.
Okay, great. Is there a specific curriculum used by SAFE from the start, or is that something that the grantee would recommend?
That is something established through, we do not have a specific modality for therapy or case management, but that is something that you work through during a strategic planning process.
All right.
We do have recommendations of best practices.
Perfect. Thank you.
Did someone else have a question? I thought I heard someone speaking up.
Well, yes, I do, Ms. Ratliff. In reference to you do have recommendations. Where could I find those recommendations?
If you read throughout the NOFO, we discuss best practices and refer to a couple of research articles that we've done through our research and analysis department. So if you go through the NOFO and really read the description of the program, you'll find that there are links to some of those reports.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, I am going to go ahead and close out our webinar today. I appreciate everybody joining live. I think that there's some value in doing a live webinar. Again, this is recorded and it will be posted onto the website. So if you have any other questions, please use that email link. Again, I'm looking in to make sure that still works, but I did get an email yesterday, so I'm pretty sure it does. Hope to see applications in the future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.